Greetings, and welcome to this brief introduction to Plato's dialogue, The Greater Hippias. Now, no one likes to listen to someone explain a joke, but sometimes a joke explains a dialogue. That's the case with the Greater Hippias. The joke occurs right at the center of the dialogue. Hippias, a sophist, and Socrates are talking about what is beautiful. Hippias has defined the beautiful as a full life, the life of a man who is rich, healthy, honored, grows old, buries his parents, and in turn receives a magnificent funeral from his children. Socrates, putting his question in the mouth of an unnamed questioner, asks Hippias if this full life is most beautiful for everyone. Hippias strongly affirms that it is. The unnamed questioner then asks, well, what about Achilles? Achilles' mother was a goddess. She doesn't die. Achilles can't bury her. That's the joke. The heroes cannot enjoy this full life because their parents never die. And the gods enjoy it even less because they can't bury their parents nor be buried by their children. Why? Because they don't die. They're so deprived. Well, Hippias is not very amused, and perhaps you aren't either. But to understand how this joke holds the key to the Greater Hippias, we need to back up for a moment and consider the dialogue as a whole. In the first line of the Greater Hippias, Socrates calls out, "O Hippias, the beautiful and wise." The theme of the dialogue is the beautiful, and right from the start that theme finds itself embodied in Hippias. Now, as I mentioned, Hippias is a sophist. He is one of the elite, a globetrotter, a consultant, a teacher. As people say today, he does well by doing good. Now, Hippias is in Athens to negotiate a peace treaty. The year is 420 BC. It's just after Aristophanes put on his devastating comedy about Socrates, The Clouds. The dialogue falls into two main parts. The first part, which is relatively short, concerns Hippias, his art, his travels to other cities, particularly Sparta, and the private wealth that he gains while doing his public service. One of his services, which also wins him private clients, is to give show-off speeches, sort of like TED Talks. Hippias says that he's got a wonderful speech on the beautiful practices that a young man should pursue. Its subject gets Socrates thinking. Socrates says that sometimes he'll call a speech beautiful or ugly, but that this unnamed fellow then castigates him, accusing him of not even knowing what the beautiful is. Socrates asks Hippias for help. Please tell me, what is the beautiful? This question becomes the theme for the rest of the dialogue. Now, the rest of the dialogue falls into two parts. In the first part, Hippias offers three answers to the question, what is the beautiful? First, he says, aversion. Second, gold. And third, that full life that I described earlier. In the form of the unnamed questioner, Socrates pokes holes in all three of these answers. In each case, he does so by invoking the gods. Any god makes even the most beautiful virgin look ugly. The most beautiful statue of the goddess Athena is made of a variety of stones, not just gold. And as we saw before, the gods, who are the very standard of beauty, fail to enjoy the full life that Hippias calls most beautiful for everyone. Now, up to this point, Hippias has been very self-assured, but the unnamed questioner's joke about the gods and death rattles him. So, in the second half of this second part of the dialogue, Socrates, or his unnamed questioner, offers three more definitions of the beautiful. First, it's what's fitting. Second, it's what's beneficial. And third, it's what's pleasing in sight or hearing. None of these definitions satisfies Hippias, because each one tries to combine two things that Hippias refuses to combine. What's fitting preserves the appearance of beauty, but not its being. What's beneficial gives some substance to the beautiful, the promise of some good, but so separates the beautiful from the good. And the pleasure through sight and hearing points to something common to these two senses, but not private or particular to either one, and Hippias denies that such a thing can exist. So, by the end of the dialogue, Hippias has become quite angry. Part of his anger is probably due to Socrates having revealed that he, Socrates, is in fact the unnamed questioner who has given Hippias such a hard time. But what Hippias says in his anger is that Socrates chops up the wholes. Hippias's anger points to his attachment to wholes or wholeness as the beautiful. You can understand all 6 definitions this way. A virgin is untouched, unspoiled, wholesome. Gold is an adornment that causes wonder, and wonder is at a whole. A full life with all its milestones, including death, it's a whole. What's fitting fits together a whole. Sight sees visible wholes, and hearing hears audible wholes. And the beneficial and the good are separate, but together they're one whole. In his anger, then, Hippias raises an important question. Does Socrates miss the whole or wholeness of things? Socrates is clearly superb at seeing parts. For example, he makes much of the example of a pot and a ladle. The one is really no good without the other. But unlike Hippias, Socrates is not committed to these apparent wholes. He constantly compares them. Socrates sees that seeming is the being of the beautiful. As a result, Socrates mistrusts the beguiling beauty of these apparent wholes. Now this point helps explain the greatest oddity of this dialogue. Socrates is doubling himself. He is both the Socrates who appears here and the unnamed questioner, the true Socrates, the Socrates who puts the truth above everything else. He appears, and by appearing points to truth beyond appearance. Socrates imitates the beautiful. Well, this joke is lost on Hippias. He goes off in a huff, but not before telling Socrates that the truly beautiful thing is to speak well in court, protecting yourself. His parting shot reminds us of Socrates' eventual demise, and it reminds us of the old accuser that led to his indictment, Aristophanes' clouds. The Greater Hippias is, in a way, Plato's response to the clouds. In the clouds, Aristophanes depicted Socrates as a sophist. Here, Plato shows us the sophist wise and beautiful, i.e., a man who boasts to be wise. Plato compares Hippias with a man who loves wisdom, and as such knows that he does not possess it. Love is what Hippias lacks. If Socrates knows anything, it's erotic things. And in understanding love, he understands the beautiful. And in understanding the beautiful, he knows both what it can and cannot deliver. Thank you for joining this brief introduction to Plato's dialogue, The Greater Hippias.